So today I wanted to have a look at my 3070 and how it performs in Black Myth Wukong and what settings I would use if I was to use this card on a daily basis. This is my setup. I'm very proud of it. I have two different PCs, one for work, one for general use. I have a big main rig, which is a 4090, and I have a 3070 PC with a Ryzen 9 5900X. And I was wondering, if I played it on the 3070, would I notice the difference? I mean, the answer is probably yes, but how big of a difference is it? So here's a little benchmark. I want to start off comparing the game in Cinematic, which is the highest preset available in the game. I wanted to see it perform 1080p and 1440p benchmarks, so you have them here side by side, and you can see it's not a great start. I did consider the 3070 a 1440p card back in the day when it came out. I still think it's capable of achieving those resolutions. However, with latest AAA games, you are going to have to make some compromises. You can see here even struggles at 1080p, so it's not necessarily the case of the card being too weak for this game. I think the settings are just incredibly taxing and demanding in this title. And if you don't know, the cinematic preset is actually a preset of ultra high settings, so it goes high, very high, and then cinematic. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend this preset to anyone playing this game. I have been playing it on cinematic on the 1490, but I do have to sacrifice a lot of the performance that's there on the lower settings. So what we're going to do is, once this benchmark concludes, I wanted to give you a sort of wider perspective on different presets and how it performs on different settings. This is, again, just to set up the precedent for the benchmark, so I'm going to let it conclude, and I'll see you at the end of the benchmark. You can use the timestamp if you want to skip ahead, and I'll catch you when it concludes. Okay, so as we get near to the end of the benchmark, you can see that the average FPS is 33 with 1080p cinematic and 26 with 1440. It's obviously better with the 1080. You know, you can actually lock out 30 and it'd be reasonably okay. However, none of these is perfect. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the optimized settings by the Hardware Unboxed. We're going to use the performance preset with no ray tracing and see how the game performs with those settings, and then we're going to compare it visually to the medium preset, which I would personally use. So let's start off with the benchmark. In the middle we have the DLSS balance, which is something that I would personally recommend. I think the DLSS looks great in this game. It introduces very nice anti-aliasing, and I feel like you're missing out if you're not using the DLSS. So yes, medium preset, but I would also at least have it on quality, especially if you want to use higher resolutions of 1080p. So in this case, this is all recorded in 1440p. And on the far right hand side, you have the optimized Hardware Unboxed settings, also using DLSS balance, so it's the same exact resolution. However, you can notice that the average FPS is significantly different between the medium preset and the optimized preset. The optimized preset does use some cinematic settings, so it will look better in certain scenarios. However, I would lean more towards medium settings myself. Because I think I'd rather take 80 FPS over, you know, barely 60. I mean, yes, the average is 68. However, the 1% lows do dip under, so you will see more stutters and hitches. You could probably look at 60, and the 1% lows might not be as significant. I've only tested this game on the 3070 until chapter 2. I might not have as wide of an idea of how it performs throughout the whole game. It might dip under later in the chapters where it does get slightly more demanding on the GPU. However, I would still probably lean more towards the medium DLSS. So this applies to most mid-range GPUs. It's very similar with the 4070, with FPS being between 10 to 15% higher than on the 3070. But saying that, I'm gonna give you some visual examples once this benchmark concludes of how it actually looks side to side. Spoilers, there's not a huge difference where I think it's worth, going to the optimized settings, but I'm going to let you judge by yourself. I don't want to be too biased. I kind of want you to just make your own decision on this. DLSS balance is a must, or at least I would highly recommend it. But the optimized or the medium preset is, I can kind of see, the debate going either way. So as soon as this benchmark concludes, I'm going to show you a side by side of how it actually looks on the medium preset and on the optimized preset, and then I'm going to point out some differences so you can judge it for yourself. You got the medium preset on the left and the optimized preset on the right. Like I said, some of the settings are higher, and on average they are higher on the right hand side. However, we do drop between 15 to 20 FPS. The main thing you will see throughout this video is that the vegetation quality or the vegetation density is a lot lower on the left hand side, but not significantly so to the point where you'll notice it all the time. So I'm going to point it out and make it a little bit easier for you to notice the differences. So you can see on the top left here, the distance quality and vegetation density is a lot lower on the left. But, one could argue that it's not significant enough that when you run into the world is noticeable enough. This is a slightly bigger difference. This is a slightly stark sort of comparison here with the cave lighting, where even the plant on the left, it doesn't really exist on the medium preset, and the cave overall is lit a lot better on the right hand side. You can see a lot more detail, which is lots of medium preset. But again, running through it, would you notice a difference? I tried to give you a comparison of what the water looks like on both optimized and medium, but there isn't an awful lot to look at, to be quite honest. It looks very good on left and right, and if you're not using ray tracing, which I don't think you should on a mid-range GPU, then the difference is very minimal. So I actually zoomed it in a little bit here to show you maybe some differences, and there's vegetation on the left, which you can't really see that well in this shot. But what I did find is that there's a slightly blurry texture on a rock in a river. So a very little difference between the two in this particular shot. Moving on though, again, I tried to give you a variety of different scenarios without spoiling the game too much, so this is all chapter 1, so no spoilers. The thing that creeps up is the vegetation density. You can see that this plant on the left just doesn't exist on the medium preset, but one could argue that it's not really significant. The developers done an amazing job of making sure the game looks very similar on both presets. All of guys over what preset use, apart from low. Low looks very bad. In this example, this is a much bigger difference. You can see the shadows are a lot lower resolution on the left. However, I do prefer the more diffused and less sharp look of the left-hand side. And they shimmer on both presets, so I don't think it makes a huge difference. And in the last shot, I wanted to show you that the tessellation on the quality of the terrain is a little bit lower on the left, on the medium. So if, that bothers you and that matters to you, here's that, maybe you should go with the optimized setting. And then here's a shot of the fire, which looks identical on both. But anyway, I don't want to make this video too long, so, let's wrap this up. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you're playing on, let me know if you're enjoying the game, and I'll see you on the next one.